And on that note, let's talk about a little Major League Soccer. The season kicks off on Saturday. All three Canadian teams are in action, and we try and pay attention to what Gareth Wheeler likes. And we know that Gareth Wheeler is a big fan of a show called Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. So this segment is inspired by that. It's called Choose Between. I'm going to give you guys a scenario, and this is quick, gentlemen. Reminder, this is a quick rapid-fire segment. So you're going to choose between Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. I hope there's no questions. Gareth, show us how it's done. This is a segment inspired by you, the team that is most likely to disappoint their fan base this season.
Vancouver Whitecaps, because that's continually been the story over recent vintage. And now that the bar has been raised a little bit, the expectations for them to get back to the playoffs, I called it last year, by the way. I just don't see it happening this time around.
Ollie?
Ooh. Yeah, Vancouver, highest expectations, right? They're on a high from the end of last season. People will be wanting this team to host the playoff game, I think, this season, and they have the most potential, I think, to fall down. I think they'll make the playoffs, though.
Yeah, I hate to agree with both of these guys. That doesn't make for the most compelling
Embrace
TV.
It.
But you know
it's
what?
called being right.
Vancouver's just not there yet. And I also think the other two teams should have really kind of tempered expectations as well.
Okay, well, the first one out of the way so far, on the rails. That's what I like to see. Right back to Josh. The team that's going to be the most fun to watch and follow week in and week out. Doesn't mean they're going to be good. It just means they're going to be fun.
Yeah, I suppose I have to go with Toronto FC here. And I say that because there could be a lot of ugly games as well. And I think for a lot of people around Canada, Toronto FC is that team that you kind of love to hate. So I think it'll be fun one way or the other. I think it'll be chaotic at times. I think their squad is still in a state of flux. So it'll be fun. It'll be entertaining. That doesn't necessarily mean that they'll always be successful.
Gareth?
Toronto FC, because they brought the biggest name in Major League Soccer to the club. At least the countdown clock is on till July when Lorenzo Insigne will be a member of Toronto FC. So it's about keeping it on the rails and building towards something before he comes. So when he comes into this team, he can make them obviously much better than they will be to start the year. So absolutely TFC.
Ollie, unanimous?
No, at the start of the season, at least, it's got to be Vancouver. You look at the schedule they have coming out of the blocks. They play 6 of their first 9 on the road, and the 3 home games are New York City and Portland, the finalists, and Sporting Kansas City, who are perennially at the top of the West. So they are going to have to either prove their credentials very early on, or they're going to be struggling.
Okay, we're going to have 2 similar questions, but there's an important distinction I will explain. The team most likely to make the MLS playoffs is based on what we know and what we expect.
I think it's Vancouver again for me, just because I still think the Eastern Conference is stronger, and there's more potential for me to see TFC lose too much ground early on. Montreal could be right around that line again, I think, in or out. So I'd say Vancouver would be the most likely.
Josh?
Yeah, I think Vancouver's in. I don't know how high, but yeah, I think Vancouver's in, and I'm inclined to agree with Ollie. I think Montreal is right there in that 6-7 range.
Wheels
Montreal,
down right now.
Montreal's the obvious choice. They have a familiar system. They didn't really change their team much. They've improved, bringing in Alistair Johnston. We'll see what Kamara has left. They certainly needed a goal scorer, someone up top. So I think that this move makes a whole lot of sense. They've shown the most. They have the deepest squad, I think, out of the 3. So make it CF Montreal.
Okay, so this is where the question slightly... go ahead, Ollie.
Just one thing on that. I think who's most likely to win make the playoffs versus who's most likely to win MLS Cup are 2 different questions. And on the latter one, I might be with Gareth on Montreal.
Now, Ollie is just trying to steal my thunder, so I might as well give the question right back to him.
Was that the question?
No, this is the question that you've already answered. So I'll let you elaborate. If everything comes together for a team, everything comes together, who has the highest ceiling in MLS, Ollie?
Well, that one has to be Toronto, I think, just because of Insigne, right? Like when he arrives, and if the first half of the season they can get some young players going, maybe there's a few nice surprises there. Salcedo works out in terms of anchoring that back line. Bradley bounces back, obviously, under a coach who should get the best out of him. It's Toronto who has the highest ceiling. I just don't know if they can get there this year.
Josh?
Yeah, undoubtedly it's Toronto FC because, as I said before, I don't think they're done adding, and I don't think they're done adding big names, especially kind of if we look towards the summer transfer window. I think the team that we see assembled, even though they have a lot of great young pieces that really could stand to play more, I don't think that's going to be the team that finishes the season. We know Bob Bradley likes to go big. We know Bill Manning has huge aspirations for this team, and so it's got to be Toronto FC for me.
CF Montreal, absolutely. They're the team again with the best structure. Mihailovic, we'll see what he can do in season number 2 in Montreal. He had 16 assists last season, basically having no one decent in front of him. Kyoto was hurt. Toy was hurt. Like, it's kind of remarkable that they were even in a playoff hunt, to be honest with you. I think this team has what it takes to go on and do something special. And look, this is a Major League Soccer. Like, what team scares you? Which side do you look at and say, wow, that team has so much talent that they're far better than anyone else? I just don't look at Major League Soccer that way right now. So CF Montreal, I think they have a real chance.
Okay, right back to Oliver for the next one. The most difficult away game when you're visiting Montreal, Toronto, or Vancouver?
I don't know that any of them are like super intense home advantage kind of environments at the minute. I think we're still waiting for one of those teams to really build the kind of dominance that we saw, from TFC in 2017 at their home stadium. For now, I'll say Vancouver. Again, I just think there's a ton of momentum behind the team right now. They've got goals in the team. They've got, probably at least the surefire or the most reliable best player in Ryan Gould, I think, coming into the season. So I'll take them.
Josh?
Vancouver. I wouldn't want to play on that turf as a visiting player.
True.
That's it. Make it a clean sweep. It's Vancouver playing on the turf. It's not fun. And it actually plays to Vancouver's strengths because they want to play a little bit chaotic. They want to play on the counterattack, use their athletes in this team and get out and run. So it definitely plays to their strengths.
Okay, we were trying to pacify the fan bases to start with some praise them. Now we're going to start picking the best, the better, and not just the clubs, but the cities. We will begin with a question on the clubs, Gareth. The team with the best 5-year forecast, not just this season, but in 5 years, who has the best forecast?
Well, Toronto FC. We heard Bill Manning mention about this project building up to the 2026 World Cup. And as of right now, of the 3, they're the only city that's a lock to be hosting World Cup games come 2026. Insigne, if you're going to splash the cash on him, it cannot just stop there. There's going to be further significant investment. There has to be, right? And we'll see what that looks like. And based upon the limitations in spending in CF Montreal and Vancouver, it has to be TFC.
Ollie?
Yeah, you don't know who's going to be running these teams in 5 years' time. So Toronto has the most money, so that's where I'll put my bet. Has to be them.
Josh?
Yeah, I say Toronto just because of the young players that they have. I look at Ralph Priso, Jaquil Marshall-Rutty, Ayo Akinola. These are 3 players that could very well be in Canada's 2026 World Cup side. So 5 years from now, whether they're still with the club, whether they've kind of moved on to bigger and better things, and then Toronto can kind of use whatever money they get from those sales to bolster their lineup. For me, it's got to be Toronto FC. They just seem to have a little bit more kind of foresight right now than the other teams.
Now, the final one before we move to Major League Soccer as a whole. This is just advice for me. I'm just going to take notes on your answers here because the 4 of us, we were out together in Edmonton celebrating after Canada won their matches at Commonwealth. But when you have to choose between Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto, which city hosts the best night out, Josh?
Is it best night out 24-year-old me when I could do some damage or best night out old man me that is
how about 26-year-old
should be the same guy. Come on.
That's specific for me. So 26-year-old Josh.
26-year-old Josh actually did a lot of damage in Vancouver. I lived there for a few years. And I probably can't go back for a while because of that. Vancouver is an underrated place to go out, but you know what? 26-year-old me, without the priorities and without the responsibilities that I have now, Montreal, if we're looking at kind of high end abilities in terms of going out, Montreal is the clear winner here.
Ollie.
I always feel like in Montreal that I'm like not cool enough to be there. Like it's a bit more like kind of artsy and bohemian, and I just don't fit in Montreal. So I think I would have to take Toronto or Vancouver. I've only been to Vancouver briefly, but it was very nice.
Montreal, and it's not even close. It's so easy to slip and fall and get yourself into trouble. and just lose a complete weekend. So it's Montreal. It's Montreal. It's not even close. Come on, I can't even believe this is an actual question here.
That almost went into a different direction. Josh saying he's banned from Vancouver. Wheels talking about a weekend erased. There's going to be a time and place for those conversations.
For another show.
That's right. I would say in the winter, I give it to Vancouver. In the summer, it's got to be Montreal, just to weigh in on that one. Finally, a general MLS question for the group. Oliver, give me one underrated storyline or something that MLS fans in general aren't paying enough attention to in the lead up to this season.
I'll go with one in Toronto, which I think Alejandro Pozuelo's situation is just going to be really interesting this year. I think he's a huge story for TFC that maybe people aren't talking about that much right now. And like, there's multiple parts to it, right? Firstly, and most obviously, he's in a contract year. He's coming off a bad season. He wants to extend and stay in Toronto, but they don't seem to have started those talks or be really close to doing that yet. So that's going to be something that's kind of lingering there as we go into the season. And then also just how he's going to fit under Bob Bradley. Everything that I've heard from Bob Bradley in preseason and what I've been able to watch of their preseason games, I don't think he's going to get the freedom and the kind of free role that he's used to, right? He's going to be asked to be a much more specific position, playing more as a number 8, more defensive responsibility, less freedom to go and chase the ball wherever it is on the fields. And I don't know how he's going to adjust to that, because he's a player in Belgium and in MLS who has always been the best player on his team and basically been allowed to do what he wants because it's worth it, right? With the way he's able to affect games. So that's something that, it could go either way. Maybe he thrives in that new role and plays really well in Bob Bradley's system. And I think that's entirely possible. Or maybe he doesn't like it so much, being a bit more restricted and having to be a bit more tactically disciplined than I think he's used to. Plus all the contract stuff on top of that.
Gareth, what are you keeping an eye on?
I don't think it's an underrated storyline. That's why I kind of feel bad in putting this out there this way. But I think it's Carlos Vela's last season in LAFC. It sounds like he's going to move on after this year. He's left the national team. Where's his ambition? I mean, he should be one of the star players in this league, and just we haven't seen the best out of him yet. They lose their manager, Bob Bradley. They bring in a lot of players at LAFC. It's such an intriguing club for me, and I want to see what they can do. And in a league that lacks some flash and dash right now, I think that LAFC brings it. So we'll see what Vela and LAFC can do this season.
Josh.
Yeah, I'll keep things in Canada. It's Alistair Johnston in Montreal. And I say that because I just wonder, is this his last season in North America, right? He moves from Nashville, and I don't know, I'm not completely sure, but my understanding is I don't know how eager Nashville were to kind of look at transferring him abroad. So I wonder, is Montreal a little bit more open to that move? And is Alistair Johnston even ready, right? I think we all agree he's a staple in the men's team, but right, is he ready for the next step in his career? What's he have to prove it's with Montreal? So that's kind of one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
Okay, gentlemen, the final topic of the day, a quick one, especially so people can clip this out when your bold predictions go horribly wrong and say, aha, I knew it. Bold prediction for Major League Soccer, coach getting fired, team winning MLS Cup, pitch invaders increase, anything you want. Gareth, what's your bold prediction?
Just give us your title pick. It's easy. That's what I'm going to do.
How about this? Josie Altidore scores more goals this season than Lorenzo Insigne.
You'll have a bit of a head start, but that assumes Josie stays healthy. I like it, Ollie. Where do you want to go here?
I'm going to be far more lazy than that. I'm just going to tell you who I've got for the final. Colorado over Philadelphia is my preseason pick. It's come back to me in a year.
But that's going to be a good nap I'm going to have over 90 minutes.
Last word to you, Mr. Cloak.
This one's not nearly as exciting, but I think with one of the highest wage bills in MLS, Atlanta United probably misses the playoffs. I just don't see the cohesion. I don't see the cohesion in the roster. I think there's just a few too many questions, a little bit too much drama for me. And I will say that I also had Toronto FC missing the playoffs last year when no one else did. So I'm doubling down in that regard.
Did you have Vancouver Whitecaps making the playoffs last year?
I did not, because I can't talk too much about Vancouver, or else people there are going to come after me.